The Perth man has become the first person to die of the virus in Australia after contracting it on the Diamond Princess cruise ship. This as 2 new cases are confirmed in New South Wales and Victoria overnight. This brings the total number of infected people nationwide to 28. The fear factor sending shoppers into a frenzy, stripping shelves at supermarkets as they prepare for the worst. And as the virus continues to spread rapidly around the world, the Australian government could soon be forced to widen its travel ban. We have special coverage this morning with reporters across the country. First to Kelly Hayward in Perth, where 78-year-old James Kwan is being remembered as a devoted family man and travel pioneer after being named as the first Australian to die from coronavirus. Kelly, his wife has also contracted the virus.
Unfortunately so, Tracy. She is here at Sir Charles Gardner Hospital in Perth. She's currently being kept in a negative pressure room and in a stable condition. She will be moved to the intensive care unit if her condition worsens. Now, she did issue a statement yesterday despite contracting the virus, saying, "My husband passed away peacefully knowing that his family loves him." Now, her husband, 78-year-old James Kwan, was the first Australian to die from coronavirus. He was flown from the Diamond Princess cruise in Japan to Howard Springs facility where he was diagnosed with the virus. He was then brought back here, and 10 days after being diagnosed, he passed away in the ICU unit in the early hours of yesterday morning. Now, it is very scary. Our health department here is warning us that this is just the first of it. We are being warned for more cases here in WA, but it certainly is a very tough time for Teresa and her family.
Indeed it is. Kelly, thank you. Now to today's Sydney reporter Gabrielle Boyle, who's at Westmead Hospital where a number of people are in quarantine. Gabby, 2 women tested positive after arriving home from Iran.
Yeah, that's right, Tracy. A really worrying situation with 2 more people testing positive to the coronavirus, the first of whom a woman in her 50s. She is the 6th confirmed case here in New South Wales. She arrived back here in Australia on the 23rd of February. She'd been in Iran, and when she arrived back here in Australia, she presented as unwell. That's when those tests were run, and she was found to be carrying the coronavirus. She has been treated by doctors, and people that were sitting around her on that aeroplane have also been informed about the situation, so they'll be on the lookout for any symptoms of the coronavirus as well. In Victoria, we've also had another case, and that brings the number of cases there to 9. A young woman also home from Iran. She's been quarantined in her family home after being released from hospital. Tracy, these 2 latest cases come as we're seeing food and supplies stockpiled. They're racing off the shelves in some Sydney supermarkets as people race to prepare themselves for a larger outbreak of the coronavirus. It really gives us some insight into exactly how worried people are about the coronavirus, that they're stockpiling food and supplies in their own homes. Certainly a very worrying situation for some Sydney-siders and some families. Tracy?
It certainly is, Gabby. Thank you. I want to bring in now Mackenzie Colohan on the Gold Coast. Mackenzie, our tourism industry has taken a massive hit.
Good morning, guys. Yeah, that's right. The impact of the coronavirus on the tourism sector has been severe. Here on the Gold Coast alone, operators are predicting that the outbreak has already cost them north of $500 million, and that number is climbing every day. The upcoming Easter school holidays are going to provide some much-needed relief, but the Queensland government isn't taking any chances. They've recently rolled out a $2 million television ad campaign to try and encourage Aussies to holiday here and boost domestic tourism numbers. But of course, we've recently had another confirmed case over the weekend, a 63-year-old beautician who's also believed to have contracted the virus while holidaying in Iran. That's prompted the federal government to extend that travel ban, which has already been in place for China, to Iran. But Tracy, this morning there are growing calls for that restrictions to be extended also to Italy, which has had already more than 1,200 confirmed cases and 29 deaths.
78-year-old Perth man becoming the first Australian to die after contracting the disease on board the Diamond Princess cruise.
West Australian President of the Australian Medical Association, Dr Andrew Miller, joins us now. Andrew, thanks for joining us this morning. It's such a sad development, and just that fact that his family wasn't able to be with him, obviously, when he passed. It just shows how real this emergency is, doesn't it?
It really does, and it's terrific that he was able to be back in WA where he belonged. He was surrounded by family, and they were, he would have known their presence, I'm sure, at the end.
Yeah. The reality here is when you look at the maps of the world that are everywhere now on the internet, it's spreading at a very, very fast rate. Are we prepared enough here?
Look, we have the plans in place and we're getting there. We're looking forward to the government making a move on Skype consultations, for example, so that GPs will be able to do a lot of the conversations with people who feel like they're coming down with something without having them in the room, without them needing to travel on public transport and that sort of thing. We need to get more masks out there. Unfortunately, straight after the bushfire epidemic in China, every mask in the world suddenly disappeared. So we need to ramp up that, because we're going to be sending our doctors and nurses into the front line. They're like the new firefighters, if you like. Suddenly we've moved from bushfire season to virus season. These guys will be on the front line. They need the gear to go out there, so that's very important.
Are you saying our doctors and nurses at the moment don't have protective gear? That's right.
So in general practices at the moment, they've only got a few masks around. That's not going to last more than a couple of weeks if this numbers start to get big. So we'll be seeing the government set up fever clinics. You'll get somewhere to go to other than the ED or the general practice, and you'll be able to go down there and get checked out without going to a location where there's a lot of other people who are well or who have other illnesses.
I think the confusing thing is the difference in opinion about whether or not this is... It's 80% of say it's just going to be like a bad cold. 80% of people will be affected like it's a bad cold. I mean, what are your views inside the medical fraternity on how serious this is?
Well, we think it's bad. About 20% of people who get it do get quite a severe illness.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, there's no immunity out there at the moment. We don't want people to panic. Sure, put a couple of things aside, but you don't need to be looking after yourself for 12 months or more at home. You don't need to panic, but you do need to be prepared. That means having conversations in the family about how life might change. If the schools get shut down, for example, you need to have a bit of a plan in place for who's going to look after the kids for a while.
Even you mentioning that this morning as people are getting ready for school, to take the kids to school, is disturbing.
Well,
the fact that is that reality?
One thing that causes panic is if you falsely reassure people and later on they then don't believe the government, they then don't believe the commentators. So we can't falsely reassure people. This has turned China upside down. They've closed the Louvre, OK? So we really do need to think about this, but we don't need to panic. So if, for example, you were talking about there could be a tsunami warning, that doesn't mean everyone on the beach needs to panic. It just means you need to think, well, where is everyone? Let's head up to higher ground. And if we do that unnecessarily, we've just, shown that we can prepare for something. And hopefully that's what will happen. But right now, we can't tell everybody that we've got this under control and we don't have a treatment for it. So we do need to be very careful. We need to talk about our elderly relatives and we need to be sure that we have a bit of a plan in place for when it hits. And we need to get used to things like not shaking hands, not kissing each other, washing our hands and sneezing into our elbow. Pretty simple things. Go and get your flu vax. It's all stuff that we can do to prepare.
Does the flu vaccine help in this in any way, or is it just another addition to an arsenal of things that we need to be doing?
I'll tell you what, you don't want both at the same time.
Right.
OK, so that's a really bad combination that we have seen, unfortunately, roll through China.
Really?
So this will, if the numbers do continue to ramp up, and we think it is going to go through the community, we might end up with more than a quarter of the population infected at some stage over the next couple of years. And that will mean that flu vaccination is a very important aspect of all of this to prevent that from becoming a disease at the same time.
So we have at the moment, there's 28 confirmed cases in Australia. You just used the tsunami analogy. Will we at some stage be talking thousands?
We will, but we want that to extend over as long a period of time as possible. So it's all about slowing it down. So this is what the social distancing's about. This is why you're starting to hear them talk about making plans for maybe not having school, maybe not having mass gatherings. We're not there yet, but unless this virus changes, then I think we could be back here talking about it and reassuring people that if we look after it properly, we can minimise the damage.
Do masks work?
Well, what masks do is they stop the person spluttering on you, OK? So touch is very important, so gloves and goggles are probably just as important for doctors and nurses who are treating patients, and we've got to get that gear to them. But wearing a mask when you walk around in public at the moment, no point to it, OK? You're just wasting resources. Right. People want me to wear a mask, my kids especially. They think I look better that way. But I think that if you're not coughing and spluttering, it's not protecting you from anything. It's different to the hazmat-style stuff that you see in the intensive care units. We need a lot more of that gear. We're going to need a lot more hospital facilities as well from the government as we go along.